Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Marius and today we're going to be knitting. The blue bonnet is one of the most iconic pieces of 18th century Highland dress. Like the belted plaid, it also developed political associations during the Jacobite uprisings. Knitting seems to have come to Scotland from Spain, and by the late 1400s, bonnet making was becoming an industry of its own. Highland bonnets and lowland bonnets were distinctly different garments. In the lowlands, bonnets were much larger and floppier, while Highland bonnets were reasonably small, generally about 12 inches in diameter. The colors could vary. In a description of the Western Isles of Scotland, M. Martin describes bonnets made of thick cloth, some blue, some black, and some grey. Blue shades could have been achieved using woad or indigo. Several bog bodies have been unearthed wearing these bonnets, including the Gunnister Man and my personal favorite bog body, the Arnish Moor Man. I just think he's neat. Let's cut the history portion of this video off here before I get on a roll about bog bodies. Then again, I really would like to try recreating the open work knitting that was found on the Gunnister. Let's get knitting. I'm using Lamb's Pride worsted in the color Blue Magic today, but Alafos Lopi yarn works just as well, and it's a lot easier to get a hold of in the UK. Whatever you're using, make sure it's not superwash. I'm also using 5 size 7 double-pointed needles. You can use circular needles if you're a coward and a communist. I found a really good pattern by Mara Riley on Ravelry, which I'll link below. This is the yarn she recommends, although I only used one ball. I've now admitted not only to having a favorite thesis, but also to having a Ravelry account. You're just gonna have to take my word for the fact that I am very cool in real life, actually, and get invited to a lot of parties. We're going to knit a little swatch to check the gauge and adjust the pattern accordingly. Our final hat is going to be felted, so we're gonna felt this swatch manually with hot water and dish soap because I don't trust the washing machine. Here's our finished felt swatch, so we can start knitting for real now. We're knitting from the crown down, so let's cast on 4 stitches. Bonnets could be knit either from the crown down or from the brim up, although the latter was more common. You'll want to space out the increases randomly to avoid forming patterns or lines. I forgot this at first and had to unravel a large chunk of knitting. Please don't do that to yourself. One of the biggest issues I've heard raised with American Jacobite regiments especially is the prevalence of sewn caps. It's true that we have some extant bonnets that are sewn from cloth, but if I remember correctly, all but one are upper class, mainly made of velvet. That means even if sewn bonnets existed among the lower and middle classes, they would have been very rare, and it's probably best to avoid over-representing them. Sure, 1 or 2 people might have worn them back in the day, but if your whole unit is kitted out in them, you're no longer representing an accurate cross-section of the Jacobite army. We've got our round crown now, and I think that's wide enough, so we're going to start decreasing again. It's about 16 inches across to account for felting. These needles are from a craft store, and they're so short, I'm trying so hard not to drop stitches. Another issue I've heard raised with sewn bonnets is their practicality. Knitting was a basic skill that most people knew, which means yes, Jamie Fraser would have known how to knit. You're welcome. I've heard people suggest sewn hats as an improvised solution for someone stuck out in the wilderness without a hat. The problem with that, though, is that if you're away from civilization in bad conditions, it's probably unwise to go cutting up your clothes or your blankets to slap a hat together. Besides, Highland dress has a built-in way to cover your head in a pinch. Anyway, we're going to start knitting the hat band now. It's going to be twice as tall as we want it to end up being, because it'll end up folded over. I did about 3 inches of plain knitting. Another misconception about Highland bonnets is far easier to fix. From what I've seen, Outlander is pretty bad about it. Lots of people seem to like to wear their caps at jaunty angles like berets, especially at American Renaissance fairs. We've got plenty of illustrations of these bonnets being worn centered, and none of bonnets styled off to the side. I think it would be reasonable to imagine them as an early version of the flat cap, instead of the beret. From what I've seen, Outlander also puts a lot of Highlanders in lowland bonnets. Time to cast off! Now we're going to fold the band in half and overcast it in place with the same wool. As you can see, we're left with a soft, lumpy cap that's too big for my head, so we're going to felt it now. I look like a 5-year-old who broke into his dad's closet. You can do this by machine, but I don't trust my washing machine like that. Instead, we're going to scrub the cap in hot water with a little dish soap until the fibers contract and felt. This takes some real elbow grease, so don't be afraid to get in there. That's what she said. After this slightly aggressive process, I'm going to stretch my cap over a plate with the right diameter to block it while it dries. I don't actually have video of the cap with the plate in it, but The cap is going to be pretty fuzzy when it dries, so we're going to clean it up with a cheap razor. We're going to shave the outside so that it's neater and smoother and leave the inside fuzzy for warmth. Finally, I'm throwing together a white cockade from scrap linen and stitching it to the band. So here we go. Here's the finished cap. I'd love to do a more accurate version of the Arnish Moor cap specifically with the little red dots around the brim, so that might be a knitting plan eventually. Anyway, that's all for today. I was on such a great posting streak until about the week before last, and then I got swamped with work and schoolwork and doctor's visits, but I'm back now, and by the time you're watching this video, I will have been on testosterone for 2 weeks to the day. You're embarrassing me, stop it. I've put my Instagram and my Ko-Fi and my Ko-fi in the description in case you'd like to check those out and maybe help me make more content. Please also like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, stay safe and see you soon.